Hey folks. First off, I'd like to say thanks to everyone who came back for my Outlander reviews. Last week's video scooped up about 1,000 views in the first few hours, which is, frankly, way more than most of the normal content on this channel gets. It's always been an Outlander-heavy channel. Yeah, let's hope we can get even more people in as this final season continues. And it's also been great reading and responding to everyone's comments. Let's keep it nice, keep it friendly there, as always. You're all good people, and we are all entitled to our own opinions on the show. Also, welcome to all the newcomers to the channel. I hope you're enjoying the Outlander content, but also there is a whole lot of other stuff here as well, as I've covered a lot of shows like Snowpiercer, Handmaid's Tale, Game of Thrones, Westworld and Catch-22 and loads of other stuff, as well as movies by month reviews that I did for a few years. All of that can be found in the playlist section. I hope you enjoy some of it. Meanwhile, let's get on with Outlander's final season. Episode 802, Prophecies, starts out with a flashback to William and his cousins before the war, chatting and laughing and Ben getting his war outfit on, and then William giving him a wee toy soldier as a keepsake. Put a pin in this because it's going to be important later. Meanwhile, in the Ridge, Claire's teaching her wee Fanny about mucus and lubrication. That's not even a joke. But yeah, it brings up some memories of dead Jane, and meanwhile, Jamie and Roger are chopping logs and chatting about Frank's future book, because that's got Jamie kind of spooked. And then Captain Cunningham rocks up, and they all figure out that actually he's a Freemason. And since Jamie's planning to open up a lodge, this is good. So he lends him a hand chopping the wood. And everyone's pretty busy today, and all the girls are out talking about babies and picking berries. And then Amy walks a wee bit away and sits down, and she gets full on buffaloed by a bear, or beared by a buff... No. Anyway, she gets hurt, and Brianna scares the beastie off with a shot that brings all the boys to the yard. But unfortunately, Amy's kind of shish kebab, and by the time Evan and the kids arrive, she's not long for the world. It's very sad. And so the boys go out hunting, but turns out Cunningham already got the bear well dead, all by his lonesome. Back at the house, Claire's cleaning up the body, and then that crazy old Cunningham turns up and helps clean the body. Turns out she's seen a lot of death in her days and is probably actually an okay person, and her name's Elspeth. Also, an unspecified time later, Claire and the rest are making some sauerkraut, and some cabbage soup, which pongs apparently, and the pong is so bad that it makes Quaker Lassie pop a baby out, which all goes fine and everyone's happy, and wee Ian and Jamie get to share a bit of dad chat out on the porch, and it's all really wholesome. And then some fat bastard rocks up and he's pretty rude to Claire, and then he's rude to Jamie and tells him that he wants him for the militia that he's forming, because, you know, Jamie used to be a general. And turns out he's one of the people mentioned in Frank's book. It also turns out he's the guy who hanged the folk we saw dead last week, because they were Tories, and he hates Tories. Which, frankly, most people in Scotland today can kind of sympathise with. And he scoffs away after being told no and is told to leave Cunningham alone because he wants to get him dead too. And then it's time for the Freemasons to meet up, and Jamie opens up the floor to anyone to chat about anything on their mind, and funnily enough, Cunningham pops up to say that his dying son prophesied that he won't die until a specific date, so he reckons he's basically immortal, which is presumably why he went after the bear. And everyone actually seems pretty okay with this and isn't weirded out by it at all. And that gets Jamie back to reading his book and hearing blackjack in his head, so he decides to bonk Claire a bit to distract himself. It doesn't work. Ah well. Meanwhile, William's gone off to spoil his cousin's sort of possibly illegal wedding by telling him that Ben's dead. And obviously he's upset, but, you know, what can you do? So then William hoofs it off to the camp, and after chatting with the completely disinterested camp commander, he goes and finds the grave. But as he's looking through his cousin's clothes and possessions, he realises the wee soldier isn't there, which makes him surprised. So he digs into the really shallow grave and he finds some ugly old dead guy. Honestly, it might have been Shrek. But yeah, anyway, it's not Ben. So that's good news, presumably. End of episode. So what did I think? Well, I mean, this was an interesting episode, and one that does kind of feel a bit like business as usual Outlander, both in good and bad ways. But obviously I'll start with the positives, which a couple of people in the comments last week somehow seemed to miss the existence of, so they're right here. They always come straight after the recap. Okay, cool. Anyway, this week had some decent character moments, and a lot of opportunities not only for characters to talk to each other, but also for a lot of characters to appear, full stop. I mean, look, there's one of the twins, like, he only appears for a second, but he's there. And also, you know, we crammed in half the adult cast of the show this week. I mean, I think the only people who didn't turn up were Parsley, Fungus, and Lord John. And we actually got some proper acting range. Look, I mean, this bit of Brianna being in shock was great, and, you know, the whole death of Amy in general, that mixture of grief and anger and trauma, it was really well done. And also kudos to Catriona Balfe, who apparently directed this episode, and it's for her first ever directing job. And she did some really good subtle work. And some of it was, you know, Maybe slightly less so, but it wasn't bad. And it's certainly better than some episodes we've seen from more established TV directors. I also kind of like the Williams storyline. As I said, it's a nice wee mystery. We're getting to see a detective story. It's like an investigation, bit by bit. Then there's something up. And it's a little thin, but it is interesting. Also, more scenes with Fanny, establishing her character a bit more. We get to see like Rachel and how she fits in with the rest of the broody mums of Outlander. And we get to see the old dads do a bit of Freemasoning. And, Claire and Jamie chatting about this upcoming potential death or situation with the war on the mountain. And we also got this bit of humanisation of the old lady. And to be honest, last week really set her up as kind of a cranky old witch. And you have to remember that this is still the 1770 odds. And mad old Christian types expecting respect and slapping wayward kids was actually probably pretty normal right up until the mid-20th century. I mean, hell, it's probably still normal in some parts of America today. And yeah, hell, in Claire's time, a clout around the ear was kind of just standard practice. So she wouldn't be too surprised by that, even if she might be a little irritated that somebody did it to one of her grandkids. We should bear in mind that this is also Claire who drank wine all through her pregnancy, because again, that was situation normal for her growing up, so times have changed. And we shouldn't probably judge Elspeth too harshly at first blush. But on the other hand, her laddie, who's been all cheerful and nice, might be completely nuts. I mean, I'm still calling it, I think he's going to turn out to be a bad guy. I mean, way too much of a strong, buff, handsome guy to get to be a goodie in this show. Because, I mean, this is Outlander, and unless you're basically as gay as the wind, or you're somebody who is marrying one of the family, or is somebody who's been adopted into the Frasers, you basically don't get to be buff and handsome unless you're either going to be getting dead, lose a limb somewhere, or you're going to turn out to be a baddie. Because basically, otherwise they might be a potential screen rival for Jamie, or like a romantic rival for Jamie, and that's not really how romance stories work, I'm afraid. I'll be happy to be proven wrong, though. No, it's not a problem, and him thinking he's unkillable makes for some fun and interesting possibilities. I mean, I kind of hope I am wrong about him and they do something interesting, because it's a bit like how, and no disrespect to the actor here, but when the guy playing Cleveland rolled up on the hill, I thought, well, he looks kind of fat and he's not massively attractive, so he's probably going to be a comedy sidekick or a villain. And straight away he was rude to Claire, which basically in Outlander terms means he's probably a bad guy. And we also found out he hanged some Tories. And it's strange because he's apparently also going to be on the same side as Jamie in the War of the Big King's Mountain. So is he going to be a bad guy? I would like the show to do something more interesting, and maybe this guy who appears bad turns out good, and maybe Cunningham, who Cleveland wants to hang, It's that old Lord of the Rings thing of he seems fair but feels fouler. The whole thing of maybe somebody who, and at first blush, doesn't appear to be that nice, might actually turn out to be somebody who's actually a good person underneath it. As well as that, this was an episode that was like life on the ridge, ups and downs, births and deaths. I mean, it's a pretty inarguable fact that since season 4 and 5 of Outlander, the show has largely operated like a historical soap opera. Definitely more from season 5 onwards. It's the kind of thing, it still tosses in sci-fi and fantasy elements and a bit of war, but I've made many comparisons over the seasons to Little House on the Prairie and Dr. Quinn Medicine Woman, and I think this week completely exemplifies that. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I'm saying if that's what you're here for, that's fine. I mean, we all watch TV shows for lots of reasons. We enjoy existing in the space with the characters we love. I used to watch all the Star Trek shows back in the day, and Buffy the Vampire Slayer and X-Files and stuff like that. And half the fun of those shows was that, yeah, there was like a weekly Monster of the Week plot. But the other half was that we all enjoyed spending time with those people in that place. And if that's what you're here for Outlander, then yeah, great. There's nothing wrong with that. However, that's not why I watched the show. Because the first few seasons of the show, it wasn't like that. That was not the kind of show that this was. They had very clear overarching goals for the characters. They had major things impeding them. There was time travel, there was excitement, there was strange stuff happening most weeks, and yet now we've settled back into life on the ridge for about the third season in a row, and it's getting predictable. And as I said, previous seasons, like even last season, there was time travel elements to the story, and there were mysteries, and they were all sidelined to being like the smallest parts of the show, whereas the majority of the show was just, what are Jamie and Claire up to, and what is the soap opera of the week? And that gets a little dull for me, because that is not what I'm here for. And part of the reasons I'm having issues with this is it feels a little pat and predictable. And as I said, maybe it will surprise me, but I feel like after seasons of this, the show is doing the same things over and over again. And I complained about this a few seasons ago when Claire got a witch trial again. And the show seemed to be just doing the beats of the first season all over again. And again, I don't know how much of that is the show, and how much of that is because it's in the books. But in other matters, there was the CGI bear. I mean, it was okay. It wasn't great, but it was okay. It's probably better than some of the ropey animal stuff we've had on the show before, or like the first season where there was the boar attack that we didn't even really see the boar particularly, because it was all stock footage. And, you know, this is fine. I get it. It's a TV show. You've got to do stuff. And fake animals are hard to come by, and real bears are scary and hard to find of TV unless you've got Game of Thrones money. But, yeah, the whole thing was just a little bit naff. I mean, it didn't look real, but it was okay. What was interesting, though, is, according to the internet, black bears don't normally charge an attack like that. I mean, they might occasionally, but they say like 1 time in 10. The rest of the time, it's just trying to scare you into running away. And similarly, there was problems with that scene. It was a bit jumbled, and honestly, it felt so obvious something was going to happen to Amy that it was a bit trite and silly. I mean, she conspicuously wanders off while everyone else is chatting mundanely about nothing in particular. So, and that's an interesting thing. If you think of any scene in a TV show or movie or even a book or anything, ask yourself, what is the point of this scene? Because if it's a dialogue scene, the dialogue will be driving towards something. If there's an action thing happening, the action will be making something happen. And sometimes it's not apparent at the beginning what the scene is about. Now sure, some stuff in the scene might be flavour or setup, like Fanny and Claire, you know, that was laying groundwork and backstory for Fanny to presumably ask or tell something later and get up to some hijinks or something. But then this scene was just, I mean, it was fine. It was cute chat about people giving birth. It was pretty normal conversation. But this is a TV show, so normal conversation that doesn't go anywhere shouldn't really be in the show. And that was kind of telling in and of itself that they weren't building towards anything in particular. And then it kept cutting to these conspicuous shots of Amy off on her own. I was half expecting an arrow to fly out of nowhere and hit her or something, or for her to trip and fall down a gigantic hole, because it was clearly something was going to happen, just because of the way the scene was constructed, and because of the lack of anything meaningful being spoken about. Also, just on a side note, this was a scene that absolutely also had the problem that recurred a few times in this episode, which was Brianna making weird faces to camera when she's not got lines. And more widely, I mean, there's just a bit of a lack of momentum here. There's a lot happening, I mean, don't get me wrong. But it's just lots of little bitty things, and a lot of them, they're not that important to the overall ongoing plot. And we're still kind of in the land of, oh, Jamie's reading a book, I hope I don't die. And that was exactly the same ending as last week, and we have the same ending again, and he hears a little bit more of Blackjack. It's also annoying because if he's reading this book, it means he's not reading Lord of the Rings, and that's a crime, frankly. But also, speaking of Blackjack, I'm happy as hell to hear Tobias again, and it's great that, you know, he's dropping these lines in. But I felt we suddenly went overboard. I mean, he went from one line the other week to suddenly he's saying loads. And then he says loads before they have sex, and then he says it afterwards as well. And why is he saying so much? I mean, less is more. And I don't hate it, as I said. I'm kind of hoping that we're building up to actually full-on seeing him appear, like as a ghost or a mental sort of imagination. A bit like when Claire was seeing and hearing Lionel Brown after he was pretty much solidly murdered. Yeah, that would be great, especially if they sort of build up to it. But yeah, it was kind of bland and overblown, which, to be honest, it was a voiceover line on Outlander, and they've always been pretty awful, even from episode 1. So yeah, clunky. Clunky is what it was. And there was a little bit of clunk in the Williams story too, which again, like I said, I'm enjoying. But like normal, as I said, it's been sidelined because it's not the Claire and Jamie story. So I kind of hope that it is building up to something, because if we're going to have like a thriller or a rescue story or a mystery or a detective type thing, kind of needs to be something. And I still sort of feel that William is probably not going to find his cousin alive, if only because this is the last season. And I don't feel like this is the sort of show that will end with William not happily shacked up with someone. And the only woman in his life is this cousin's secret, like, wife that popped up. So, anyway, we'll see what happens. So where does that leave us? Well, we're 2 episodes in, so it's a bit early to worry that maybe there isn't quite enough to this season. And looking back at season 5 or 6, they had similar episodes early on. In fact, heck, I'm pretty sure episode 602 literally had like a death and a birth in that same episode. So here we are 2 seasons later, we're doing the same thing again. And yeah, I mean, I do worry that this creative team maybe only has so many different gears they can run on, and by now we know the plays and the paint by numbers for the way they adapt these books pan out so well that it becomes formulaic. I mean, it might be a problem with the books themselves. I only read the first one, so, I mean, you tell me. And I didn't hate this episode. And there is a lot of scope to tell a broad story. And as I said, maybe the book does this. But, oh, please, no spoilers in the comments, please. Happy for people to discuss things, but I don't want to have my enjoyment tainted with foreknowledge of any heel turns or unexpected events that pop up later in this story. I mean, we are on the last season. But really, though, this was fine. I'm yet to see anything here that's breaking the mold, good or bad. Or indeed staking out this final season as anything different than what's come the last few. So 8 episodes left, and yeah, there's still everything to play for. But what did you think? I mean, let me know in the comments. Do you think I'm being fair? Do you think I'm not being fair? Do you have any different insights on things? Let me know. But for now, until next time, these have been my grumpy opinions.